I didn't want to leave everything behind. And the way we worked it out is this. I was 76 years old when we left, by the way, and it was on March 25th, 2012. On my 75th birthday, my wife, Becky, got my daughters, Denise and Lori, to send me 75 gifts. Some of the gifts were like a pen, or it was some little trinket, and the other was bigger, but I had these boxes of gifts. So the security saw this. So they saw that I got 75 gifts. So then we started sending out particles that we had to her mother, who was going to have a birthday. And they allowed it to go because they thought, well, I got 75 gifts. I'm probably going to give her about 70 some gifts. You follow me?
Smart.
So that's how we were able to get a lot of our belongings off that. Otherwise, I couldn't put everything in a car. So then it's coming down to the day that we're going to leave. And I get up at 7 o'clock that morning. We have breakfast at 9 o'clock. It's a Sunday. And prior to that, what I had done on every Sunday morning for months is I would get in my car and I would drive across from the southern part of the base through the gate to the northern part, come back and go into the studio, which in the studio there was a refrigerator. And I always had maybe Italian salami, some provolone cheese, some brie, all kinds of fancy little things that I would store there. And I'd come through the main gate and I'd give these treats to the security guards every Sunday morning. So basically, what I was doing was feeding the watchdogs and getting them used to the fact that I'd be going to the north side of the property every Sunday morning to get a treat before breakfast. So now we're coming to the day that we're going to get out of there. And by the way, the night before, I have a bag full of shoes in a mesh bag, and I'm putting it in my car. And one of the security guards drove by, looked at me doing this, didn't even mention it. And I'll tell you why. My cover was this. I was 76 years old. Nobody thought I would ever leave. And I was the father of the chairman of the board. And those two things were the best cover I had for our plan being executed and going into effect. Now, comes the day we're leaving. We go out to the car. I had a little notebook, which I still have, and I marked in there all the things we were taking and the things we're leaving. And there are two gates on the lower side of the property. The main gate where the security guards are has like a booth in it where the security is, and they have infrared things where they can look all over the base and just all kinds of electronics equipment to see if anybody's trying to get out or get in. And there's another gate called the West Gate, which is west of that, about 150 yards down the road. And all it is a gate that there's a camera on that they can, you buzz, you press a button, they look at you through that camera. And then if you hear the gate go, Bob, it's opening, and they'll just open the gate for you.
Mhm.
Or if they want to question you, they'll say, well, come up to the main booth. So now we're in the car, and I know this because I've planned this out. On Sunday morning, there are only two security guards on duty. Jurgen is in the main booth, and Sal is in the chase car. When I say a chase car, it's actually like a van that this guy has, and he uses it to chase people if they try to escape. But Sal is down at the place where we have breakfast, which is about 50 yards away from the main booth. I know this because the chase car is parked outside that building. So I thought, okay, this is going to work. Meanwhile, my heart is in my throat. I get up to the gate. I press the button. He didn't even ask me a question. He just opened up the gate. I slowly pulled out, said to Becky, we're turning left, Becky. I turned left, pedaled to the metal, got it up to about 75 miles an hour because of what? 1 mile down the road, there are three decisions you have to make. If you turn right, you can go to Route 10, which will take you to LA. If you go straight, it'll take you to Route 60, which takes you to LA. If you turn left, you go into the town of Hemet. I knew that when Sal came there, he would figure I'm probably going to go turn right to get on 10, to get on the main highway. That's probably what he did. I don't know what he did, but once I turned left, it's a straight mile shot before you get into Hemet. Once I got into Hemet, I turned right and we were free. That trip across the United States took me almost 3 days. I paid for gas, paid for food. We stayed in a motel 2 nights. Everything was paid with cash because if I used my credit card, they
They'd
would
track
check,
you.
they would got me. They would have a way to know where I was. They would fly people out to where I probably would be, and they would have seized me and taken me back and Becky.
How much cash had you saved making $50 a week?
Well, I was at a point where I was getting an amount of Social Security, so I was getting that also
Mm.
because of my age, but
Mm-hmm.
a very small amount because I spent 26 and a half years on staff, and they pay in almost on $50. What do they pay in Social Security?
Now, how did you get a W-2 for that? Was that like
Yeah,
accounted
you
for?
yeah you can see for the year $2,500.
Wow, man. You can't do. I mean, you can't do shit with $2,500 a year. I don't understand. Like, I would I figure most people would just quit so much earlier after making that kind of money. Like, okay, this is great. Scientology is wonderful. It teaches you all these great things, but you're making $2,500 a year. How could that justify making such a small amount of money?
Because your mind is conditioned into thinking what you're doing is helping every man, woman, and child on the planet.
Ugh.
Danny, you don't know that state of mind unless you're in it. There was a group at one point way back, maybe in the 60s, called the Peace Corps. Did you ever hear of that?
Yeah.
Okay, these guys got pittances, but they did it because they figured they're helping all of men. And with Scientology, and they probably were to some degree, but with Scientology, they talk about clearing the planet. They haven't cleared a fucking cul-de-sac yet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But your mind is upset. You get people on who've been in it for years. They'll all tell you a similar story.
So what was your plan? What was your plan? You got on the highway and you drove across the country, you and your wife. What was your guys' plan? And what happened? What did those guys do once they realized that you were missing?
Well, I'm sure the shit hit the fan because um, for me to leave, that was a terrible thing. That because I would be considered a really sensitive particle or a security risk. What was my plan? I wanted to live my life in freedom. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to get in communication with my two daughters and my grandchildren and see them and maybe go back to playing my horn again, or there's exercise devices I was selling. I could do that and just enjoy life. That's all it was. And
Did you anticipate them hunting you down after this?
oh yeah, I know they'd come after me, but I didn't know when. But it wasn't for maybe about almost 2 weeks that I'm sitting in my wife's mother's place. And by the way, this is my second marriage. I'm married to a much younger woman. And we're sitting in her mother's place, and her mother has like a split level home. And I look out the back window in the kitchen, and there's this person, Marion Powell, walking around trying to look through the windows. So I go outside, and there's Greg Wilher and Marion Powell, who had come out to salvage me, to bring me back. And they're trying to be jolly and funny and then saying, "Oh, Ron, it's so funny because we thought you're going to go to Florida. We never thought you'd come here. But here we are. Ha, ha, ha." And I said, "Greg, listen, I'm not going back. I mean, that was a terrible fucking life I lived, so you can just cool it." And then he pulls out this bulletin and he said, "You blew." Now, blow is another words for leave without authorization.
Mm.
Okay? And in that technical bulletin, listen to this, Danny. It says the only reason that a person blows is because they have committed harmful acts to the group that they're a part of. So they want to remove themselves from the group so they don't continue harming it. It doesn't say anything about you could be living such a miserable fucking life that you'd take anything except staying in that group. And that's why you left. It doesn't say anything about that. It says that it's your fault that you left because you've been hurting the group and now you want to get away from it, not to hurt the group anymore. Does that make sense to you?
Oh yeah, I mean, how convenient for them. Now
Exactly.
you're a danger. That's the only reason you could have left. There's no reasonable explanation for you to leave.
That you got it entirely. I don't have to tell you another word about that. But I will tell you, they hung around and they started calling me every day, and I never answered the call. And so after about a month, we went to visit my son Ronnie down in Virginia. And when I came back, I went to the motel that they were staying at, and the car was gone, so they had left. They didn't want to go back because they had to go back and tell David, "Listen, we didn't get him." And at that point, you're in deep trouble, in very deep trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So now, year goes by. This is 2013 now. I purchased a house in West Dallas, where I'm talking to you from right now. And across the street, one night, there's a guy over there looking in the windows of a house that's for sale. The next door neighbor calls the cops and says, "Listen, there's some guy looking in the windows of this house that's up for sale. I think he might be a drug dealer." Out comes the West Dallas police, primarily a guy by the name of Nick Pye, who at that point he was a detective. And he confronted the guy and said, "What are you doing?" The guy says, "What, am I breaking the law? What am I doing wrong?" He says, "Well, I'm just asking you what you're doing. You're looking at this house." And the guy says, "Oh, he started giving him a bunch of crap." Now, I don't know where he had the guts to do that because Nick Pye is built like an NFL linebacker. It looks like he can bench press 400 pounds, and he actually can. Okay. So Nick Pye says, "Listen, I'll tell you what, you're under arrest. Can I look in your car?" The guy says, "Sure." Nick goes and looks in the trunk of this van, which has blacked out windows. And in the trunk of that van is 5 license plates from 5 different states, 5 handguns, a stun gun, 2 rifles, one fitted up with a silencer, and 2,000 rounds of ammunition.
What
And at
the
that,
fuck?
yeah, this. And by the way, just for your viewers and anybody else, on my website, therealronmiscaviage.com, you can go there and hear the entire interrogation that Nick Pye and Ricky Hankins, who was a tobacco, alcohol, and firearms agent, you can hear the actual interrogation of Dwayne Powell and his son Daniel Powell. They were a father and son team. And hear the things I'm starting to tell you right now. They can hear this actual interrogation. Now, it turned out that they were getting paid $10,000 a week to follow me. And they had to follow me from 8 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. And then if I went out after that, they'd still have to work. Upon the interrogation, once Dwayne Powell knew that he was in deep caca, he started singing like a canary. And he said, "Listen, we no meant the man no harm, and we use these for target shooting." And he was indicted, though, by the way, by an Eastern Wisconsin court, and probably the church, because I don't think he'd have the money to do it, sent up an attorney from Chicago that got him on 5 years probation. But anyway, as part of that interrogation, they mentioned a scene that happened in a local supermarket that I was shopping for groceries. And this was the summertime. And I had a pocket T-shirt on, and I come out to the car, had groceries in the cart, opened the back door, and was going to put the groceries in. And I bent over to do that, and I thought my cell phone was going to fall out of my pocket. So I grabbed my left chest with my right hand. These PIs are in the van. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. They saw me, and the father says to the son, "It looks like he's having a heart attack. I should call in and see what we should do." So Dwayne called in, and a guy come on the phone by the name of Greg, and Greg said, "Listen, I'll get somebody on the phone for you." Within minutes, another person got on the phone, identified himself as David Miscaviage, and said, "Listen, if it's his time to die, let him die. Don't intervene. Don't do anything."